right, so this video is going to be focusing all on the concept of intervals. Intervals in music are a way of measuring a distance between two notes and the amount of distance and the quality of distance. So the word quality we're going to be using a lot throughout honestly, like all of music theory. A quality is relating it major, minor, augmented, diminished, perfect. I'm going to get into that. But yeah, so it's all determining it by the distance and the quality of that distance, okay? So in this video, we're going to just talk about intervals above notes and building them that way and identifying them. So yeah, it's going to be both building and identifying the intervals, okay? So what we're going to do first is just think about a major scale, okay? So for ease, I'm going to do treble clef, and I'm just going to do a C major scale, so no sharps, no flats. All right. So between each of these notes, we can determine an interval. So between these two, this is a second, and you can just count them 1, 2, it's a second, right? Between C and E, that's a third, right? 1, 2, 3, you can just kind of keep counting, and then same C to F is a fourth. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, it's just counting at this point, right? And then this would be a fifth, obviously, and then we have a sixth, and then we have a seventh, and then we have an octave, right, or an eighth, right? So we almost never say eighth, we just say octave, so you should be familiar with that one. And then there is one other interval, kind of similar to the octave. It's called a unison, which then it would be like a C to a C is a unison interval, right? Which again, I guess you could technically call it a first, but we're going to use the word unison and octave, and then the rest of these are just by counting. Whenever you're counting intervals, you always include the note in your count. So here it's 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 3. You're not going to count away from it and go 2, 3, right? Or 1, 2, right? So make sure that you count the note as well. So that's just showing you how to count distances. I mean, honestly, obviously you're not going to be looking at major scale lengths to measure intervals. It's going to be the distance between, like, let's say 2 notes like this, but it's a way of knowing how to count. So here you would just count all of your spaces and lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's your number, right? So that's phase 1 of identifying intervals, or building intervals too, is getting your number and just finding that note. All right. Then we're going to talk about the quality. So numbers are really easy. It's just counting. Qualities are a little bit more complicated. Okay. So there are 5 different qualities. There is major, which we're going to label with a capital M. There is minor. I guess I'll just write. There is minor, which we're going to label with a lowercase m and a line over it, just to determine that this is a lowercase m, because sometimes these m's can look similar. There's diminished, which has like a little circle. It looks like a little degree sign. There is augmented, and that's going to be a plus sign. And then there's also a perfect interval, and that's just a capital P. All right, so first we're going to talk about major intervals. So major intervals are really easy because all that you need to know to find these is a major scale. All right, so let's say that we have a C, right? Now, I'm going to give you an interval. Let me throw an A on that, okay? So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's a sixth of some sort. Now, if it's a major interval, it fits within that key. So you go by the lowest note, so think C major, no sharps or flats, and then you ask yourself, does A natural happen or naturally occur in C major? Yes, it does, so this is a major sixth. Okay, so you can ask yourself that for all intervals within a key. So let's try a different one. Let me say that there's F to A. All right, so you count first, 1, 2, 3, this is a third. Then think in the bottom note key, F major, so there's 1 flat. And then you ask yourself, does A naturally occur in F major? Yes, it does. This is a major third, okay? So when we're determining major intervals, it all goes by that major scale, okay? So here, let's say I'm just gonna write out a major, we're gonna do F major, just for one flat. All right, so between here and here, we have a major second, right? Because between this and that, that's 1, 2, and then obviously G naturally occurs in F major, right? Between here and here, we have a major third. Now I'm going to skip 4 and 5 for a moment, and then we're going to say F to D is a major sixth, F to E is a major seventh. So obviously these are all major intervals. Now these ones are special. This is our other quality that naturally occurs in a major scale. And these are called perfect intervals. So anytime that you have a fourth that fits that major key, it's actually a perfect fourth, or P4. And the same thing happens with fifths, so P5. So there is no such thing as major fourths, and there's no such thing as major fifths, no minor fourths, and no minor fifths. These are always, anytime that you have a 4 or a 5 and it fits in a major key, it's always a perfect interval. It will be our next video on inverted intervals that I will talk about why these are called perfect. There is a reason, but for now, as long as you can count up 4 and determine that it's in that major scale, it's going to be labeled as perfect. No major fifths or major fourths or anything. The same goes for octaves. So if you want to actually label an octave, it's going to be a perfect octave. So these are perfect intervals, maybe for a nice list, actually. So your perfect intervals are always 4, 5, 8, and unison technically, perfect unisons. And then your major intervals are going to be 2, 3, 6, and 7. All right, we're going to be talking about a gauge that will tell us how to determine all of those. Okay, awesome. Great. So if that makes sense, we're going to go on to minor intervals. All right, so a minor interval is like a major one, but it's been lowered a half step. All right, and you're going to get minor that way. So one, we can just create one. So let's go back to friendly C major. Let's do that A. So if you remember, we just labeled this one earlier. This is a major sixth because, again, you count up, you get 6 as the distance, and then A naturally occurs in C major, so it's major, right? If we wanted to make this interval minor, all that we have to do is lower this top note a half step. So let's throw a flat on that, and now we have a minor sixth. Okay, so major, so when thinking about minor intervals, I personally just think about a major interval and lowering it. Or if I was identifying one, so let's say that we were looking at, and we've been doing a lot of F. Let's do G, okay? Yeah. So if you were given this and you had to identify it, this is what you do. You count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a seventh of some sort. Now you ask yourself, in G major, which has 1 sharp, does F natural naturally occur? Obviously not. F sharp is the one that naturally occurs. What happened to it? Well, sharp to natural, it was lowered by a half step. So we're going to label that as a minor seventh. So when building an interval, make it major first and lower it a half step. When identifying, figure out and ask yourself, what happened to this note? This was lowered a half step, okay? So those are all minor intervals. Now, that's also something special with the perfects. So if you remember, perfects are fourths, fifths, eighths, and then octaves too, and unisons. And then your major / minor intervals are going to be 2, 3, 6, and 7. So this actually means if you lower a fourth and a fifth, you're not going to get a minor fourth or a minor fifth. We're going to talk about these next. These are special cases. So it's all within this, that if it's a major second, down a half step, you get minor. Major third, down a half step, you get minor. Major sixth, so on and so forth. Okay. So now what we're going to talk about are the special cases of your perfect intervals, okay? We're going to go back to C major, nice and friendly. So let's make a perfect fourth here. right? So this is a perfect fourth. Again, I could count up 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then ask yourself, F natural naturally occurs in C major, perfect fourth, okay? Now, when we change or alter these guys, we're gonna get a different quality, all right? So if we were to lower this to an F flat, we're actually going to get a diminished fourth, okay? If we were to raise it, you're gonna get an augmented fourth, okay? So these ones don't go to minor or major. These ones only go to diminished or augmented. So the same thing's gonna happen on your fifth. This is a perfect fifth, C to G. G naturally occurs in C major, so that's a perfect fifth. If I wanted to lower it, that's a diminished fifth. If I wanted to raise it, that's an augmented fifth, okay? All right, so those are some of the intervals. There's one more. So you can have augmented seconds, thirds, sixths, sevenths, things like that, all right? But those have to go through a whole gauge. So I actually think about these little gauges in my mind when I think about intervals. So there's your perfect gauge. So this is a perfect interval, which includes 4, 5, octave, and then unisons, right? And if you raise it, you're gonna get augmented, all right? If you're gonna lower it, you're gonna get diminished. Diminished, right? So this is a half step move, okay? So this is, for all of these intervals, this is kind of a gauge line that we're gonna use, right? Now, if we were doing major minor intervals, so those are the other ones, 2, 3, 6, and 7, right? I think that we have major. We raise it, we're going to get an augmented interval. If we lower it, we're gonna get minor. If we lower it a second time, that's how we get diminished, okay? So I'm gonna leave this gauge here, and what we're gonna do is build a few example intervals, okay? So let's say, for example, let's do bass clef for fun, just to kind of change it up. So I'm gonna give us an F, and I'm gonna say let's build a major sixth on that F, okay? So major is really easy, right? All you have to do is think about F major scale. What's an F major scale? 1 B flat. All right, so let's count up 6. Let's build it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. D. Okay, so that's the number. Now let's think about the quality. Does D naturally occur in F? Yes, it does. So we're just going to leave it. That's perfect. That is a major sixth. All right, let's build another one. We're going to do A flat. And I am going to ask for a minor second. Okay? So first, when we do this, find your number 2. So 1, 2, obviously it's going to be a B. Now, in my head, I'm going to go major first. A flat has 3 flats, right? And that does include B flat. So this is a major second. Now, I want to lower this to make it minor. So actually what we have to do is a double flat. So it's going to be 2 flats. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of space to do that. So double flats are just 2 Bs, right? 2 little flats, okay? Let's try another one. Let's do E, and I'm going to ask for a perfect fifth. All right, so again, step 1 is to figure out your number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. And then we're going to make sure that this all fits. So E major has 4 sharps. F, C, G, D, right? Okay, awesome. And so B natural naturally occurs. That's going to be perfect fifth, right? So that one's all set. So these are all kind of easier ones. Let's go a little bit harder. I'm going to leave this gauge up here because it really does help. Actually, it might even help for me to write 2, 3, 6, 7. All right, let's do a little bit harder one. So if I were to give you a G and ask for a minor seventh, what we're going to do is, again, count up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to be an F of some sort, right? So first thing, G major has 1 sharp. That's F sharp. Ooh, let's make this a major seventh first. This is a major seventh. We want minor. So if we go by this gauge, we're going to go down a half step, which means we're going to make this lowered, right? So what we're going to do is actually just make that an F natural, and we have a minor seventh, G to F natural. All right, let's go even harder here. Let's do a different one. This one I'm going to give you a B flat, and we're going to build an augmented sixth. Okay, so first determine which gauge you're going by, right? 6 falls under this category. So first let's find major again. So B flat has 2 flats, B and E, right? So first we're going to count up to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, great. So we know that this is going to be a G of some sort, right? So let's find major first. B flat, E flat. Do we need to make this anything? No, this is a major sixth right here. If we want to make it augmented, what are we going to do? We're going to raise it a half step. So we're going to sharp that. That is your augmented sixth built on B flat. All right, let's try another one. This one's going to be a diminished fourth built on C sharp. So again, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 to an F. Now what we're going to do is think major, or actually it's a fourth, right? So what are we looking at here? We're on this gauge instead, right? So we want a perfect interval first. So C sharp has all sharp. So actually to make this perfect, you just got to give it a sharp, right? Pretty easy there. We're going to make it diminished. So that means on this level, we're going to have to lower it 1 time, okay? So that means we're going to lower it, a sharp becomes a natural, and C sharp to F natural is a diminished fourth. All right, awesome. I do want to mention, if we were doing an interval like this that's on this gauge, right? And let's say that I actually asked for a diminished sixth. What we would do is, again, find major first, which was this, a G natural, right? And then what we're going to do is actually lower it once, 2 times to get diminished, right? So that means 1 time a flat, 2 times a double flat. All right. And now really quickly, I'm just going to show a couple of identifying an interval. So if you were given, let's say that you were given this, let's go back to treble clef, given a C to an A double flat. Ooh, weird, right? Okay, so what we do is, if you're given this and I told you to identify what it is, you're going to find your number first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a 6 of some sort. Then think in your head, C major, usually A natural is the one that shows up here. So here's your major is A natural. So this was lowered 1 time, 2 times, diminished sixth, right? So you can use this gauge, right? All right, let's do another one. If I gave you, let's see, a D to an E flat, D, E flat. So again, determine your number first, 1, 2, that one's really easy, right? And then think D major. What is usually scale degree 2 on that? Oh, it's usually E natural. All right, so you're here on your major second, but then it was lowered. Oh, so it's a minor second. Okay. Next, let's do a little bit of a harder one. I'm going to give you a G flat to a C. Okay. So here, again, figure out your number, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, 4, which means we're looking at this gauge, right? Because 4 is part of this perfect scale. All right. Now what we do is G flat. What naturally occurs on scale degree 4 in G flat? Well, actually it's C flat, right? So what happened here? This was a flat and it became a natural, so it was raised. So here we're on perfect, but it was raised. Now we're on augmented. So we have an augmented fourth there. All right, so this was all about building intervals and identifying intervals above a note. The next video that I will be giving you is showing you how we're going to build intervals below a note.